Now we talk about open society and open religion. This analysis would hardly be completed without a word on the neo-language so popular in the ecclesiastical sphere. Traditional Catholic vocabulary has been deliberately modified in order to change the content it expresses. The same has happened in the liturgy and preaching, where the clarity of the Catholic exposition has been replaced by ambiguity and the implicit denial of dogmatic truth. The examples are endless. This phenomenon also goes back to Vatican II, which sought to develop Catholic version of the slogan of the world. Nevertheless, I would like to emphasize that all those expressions that are borrowed from secularistic lexicon are also part of the new language. Let us consider the Bergoglio's insistence in the outgoing church, the openness as a positive value. Similarly, I quote from Fratelli Tutti, "A living and dynamic people, a people with a future, is one constantly open to a new synthesis through its ability to welcome differences." Number 160. I quote again, "The church is a home with open doors. We must to be a church that serves, that leaves home and goes forth from its places of worship, go forth from its sacristies, in order to accompany life, to sustain hope, to be the sign of unity, to build bridges, to break down walls, to sow seed of reconciliation." Close the quotation. Similarly, with the open society sought after by Soros' globalist ideology, is so striking as to almost constitute an open religious counterpoint to it. And this open religion is perfectly in tune with the intention of globalism. From the political meeting for a new humanism, blessed by the leaders of the Church, to the participation of the progressive intelligentsia in green propaganda, it all chases after the mainstream thought, in the sad and grotesque attempt to please the world. The stark contrast with the words of the Apostle is clear. I quote from the Epistle to the Galatians, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human being or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." The Catholic Church lives under the gaze of God. She exists for His glory and for the salvation of souls. The anti-church lives under the gaze of the world, pandering to the blasphemous apotheosis of man and the damnation of souls. During the last section of the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council, before the Synod's fathers, these astonishing words of Paul VI resounded in the Vatican Basilica. I quote, "The religion of God who became man, has met the religion, for such it is, of man who make himself God. And what happened? Was there a clash, a battle, a condemnation? There could have been, but there was none. The old story of the Samaritan has been the model of the spirituality of the Council. A feeling of boundless sympathy has permeated the whole of it. The attention of our Council has been absorbed by the discovery of human needs, and these needs grow in proportion to the greatness which the Son of the earth claimed for himself. But we call upon those who term themselves modern humanists, and who have renounced to the transcendent value of the highest realities, to give the Council credit at least for one quality, and to recognize our own new type of humanism. We too, in fact, we more than any other honor mankind. This sympathy is the figure of the Council and of the new religion, for such it is, of the anti-church, an anti-church born of the unclean union between the church and the world, between the heavenly Jerusalem and the hellish Babylon. Note well, the first time a pontiff mentioned the new humanism was the final session of the Vatican II. And today we find it repeated as a mantra by those who consider it a perfect and coherent expression of the revolutionary men's frame of mind of the Council. Always in view of this communion of intent between the New World Order and the anti-church, we must remember the Global Compact on Education, a project designed by Bergoglio and promoted in collaboration with the United Nations, I quote, to generate a change on a planetary scale, so that education is a creator of brotherhood, peace and justice, an even more urgent need in this time marked with the pandemic. I close and quote. This project has been supported and spread to all educational institutions by the Congregation for Catholic Education through a letter that makes explicit reference to the Conciliar Constitution Gaudium et Spes. The Global Compact on Education, I quote, is a process of formation in the relationship of culture of encounter, also finds space in the value of common home, with all creatures, people, just as they are formed to the logic of communion and solidarity, are already working to recover serene harmony with creation and to configure the world as a space of true brotherhood. Close the quote. As can be seen, the ideological reference is always and only to Vatican II, because only from that moment on did the anti-church place man in the place of God, the creature in the place of the Creator. The new humanism obviously has an environmental and ecological frame into which are grafted both the encyclical Laudato Si and the green theology. The Church, with Amazonian face, on the 2019 Synod of Bishops, with his idolatrous worship of Pachamama in the presence of the Roman Sanhedrin. The Church's attitude during the COVID-19 demonstrated on one hand the hierarchy's submission to the dictates of the state, in violation of the Libertas Ecclesiae, which the Pope should have firmly defended. It also put on display the denial of any supernatural meaning of the pandemic, replacing the righteous wrath of God, offended by the countless sins of humanity and nation, with the more disturbing and destructive fury of nature, offended by the lack of respect for the environment. And I would like to emphasize that attributing a personal identity to nature, almost endowed with intellect and will, is a prelude to her divinization. We have already seen such a prelude of this under the very dome of St. Peter Basilica. The bottom line of this conformity on the part of the anti-church with the dominant ideology of the modern world establishes a real cooperation with powerful representatives of the deep state, starting with those working toward a sustainable economy, involving Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Bill Gates, Jeffrey Sachs, John Elkann, to mention a few.